Hello everyone and welcome to another video here on the Cycling Dane Extra channel, and today we're looking at the Clásica de Almería, and very big thank you to the organizers for allowing us to show the footage. The race itself had plenty of big names lining up in terms of the sprinting game, from Phil Bauhaus to Fernando Gaviria, Milan Fretin from last year, and of course also Biniam Girmay of the NSN cycling, who had recently taken a victory in the Tour Valenciana. We even had 𝐚𝐚𝐢𝐧 lining up for the start, as well as Pascal Ackermann. So there were a lot of sprinting riders looking to do something. The race itself, 190 kilometers long, with a few climbs in the middle, but nothing too taxing. This race, of course, ending in a sprint for the most part, and this year wouldn't be any different. We picked the race up with 37.3 kilometers to go. The breakaway had 34 seconds, and the sprinters teams very much drilling down the deficit. The break was a mixture of pro-continental riders looking to see if they could get a big scalp here in Spain, but that wasn't really looking like it was going to be on the cards, if we're all honest. And behind, we could see that Lotto riding in the services of Arnaud Dely, NSN riding for Biniam Girmay, and Unibet riding for 𝐚𝐚𝐢𝐧 were all contributing to the chase. The breakaway were making their way towards the finishing line, as this was a circuit towards the end, and as they crossed the finishing line for not the last time, they could just about, if they look behind, see the bunch creeping up on them. So the outcome for them was definitely beckoning. It wasn't long before the contact was made by the peloton with just under 25 kilometers to go. The sprinters teams had reeled in the breakaway completely, and before long, the breakaway had completely evaporated, and now it was a whole nother game. It was over to the sprint teams to dictate what was going to happen. And the first sprint team to really dictate the pace at this point was NSN cycling. We had Unibet up there as well. Jaco Ayula also with new boy Pascal Ackermann in mind, and Bardiani were in there. But Biniam Girmay had a very strong team around him that included Askey, Hugo, Hofstetter, that was surely going to do something fantastic in the lead out. It was a bit calm at this point with 21.8 kilometers to go. Jaco looking interested to dictate the pace. But then as soon as we got out on this highway with a bit of a kick up, then the pace really started to increase massively, with a bit of a split going on in the bunch and a few riders being caught out in the middle. But the pace was increasing a lot on this slight drag, with the riders reaching upwards of 54, 55 and even 56 kilometers an hour on this steady gradient, and many teams looking around thinking what they were going to do here. Milan Fretin was being wielded back into the bunch by his teammates, the former champion, the last year's champion, and Cofidis were hoping that he could replicate the success. At the front, Bardiani was still in the mix, so was Movistar with Jaco Ayula and Unibet, but Q36.5 were not giving up the control at the front, with Bahrain also with Phil Bauhaus looking for something. Then with 16 kilometers to go, we were starting to see some real fractures in terms of this bunch, not through echelons, but in terms of which side of the road that they were going to stay on, and plenty of teams were a bit confused which side of the road they were going to be on. There was definitely some argy-bargy going on, but before long they were all back together, and this looked like calm before the storm, and that storm came very quickly for some riders, as there was a crash behind involving plenty of the Bauhaus Flanders riders and a Cofidis rider, Valentin Ferrand. So that was a big loss for the Cofidis team, looking to try and take the scalp with Fretin once more. The crashes didn't stop there, however. There was another crash that happened a few kilometers later involving an FDJ rider and another Bauhaus Flanders rider, so it was not a particularly good day for them. Then with just under 11 kilometers to go, we got Unibet taking control at the front of the race, looking behind, making sure that 𝐚𝐚𝐢𝐧 was not too far behind, but still a bit too far out. But the bunch was certainly a bit smaller than we're used to in these sort of sprint finales. Bardiani sensed an opportunity and took to the front. The pro-continental team looking for an upset here, but we still had Q36.5 in a great position. So was NSN cycling, and Lotto and Moschetti were also in the mix. But Bardiani were not giving up the front without the fight, and 𝐚36.5 were moving neatly up on the right hand side. So was Lotto. It was a bit of a fractured lead out for them, but on a delete, they were looking to try and get a scalp with him. There was also a bit of argy-bargy going on between Bardiani and NSN Cycling, which were positioning Bini in a very good position. And then behind there was another crash, and it wasn't quite apparent what caused that crash, but plenty of riders coming down behind, and again showing why the front of the race is the best place to be in these very high speed finishes. When we then got to 6 kilometers to go, Bini was sitting in the perfect position, so was 𝐚36.5 as well as Lotto. These three teams were really dictating the pace at the front as they crossed the finishing line for the penultimate time. NSN really put on the pace at the front with 5 kilometers to go. Cofidis trying to match that, and Lotto also in the mix, but the sprinters were not really in the ideal position, but we were still a bit of a way out. We could also see 𝐚36.5 organizing themselves behind this, and they were looking like they could be a very dark horse for the finish. With 3.6 kilometers to go, Lotto sensed an opportunity and got organized, took to the front with 3 of their riders, but NSN were smelling this as well, so they made sure to stick onto this with Bini not far behind on a delete. But with 3.3 kilometers, this looked like a masterstroke for Lotto, but it might have been a bit too soon. If this was 1 kilometer to go, this would have been the perfect move. And before long, we could see that Lotto was struggling when the circuit changed a bit. With 2.4 kilometers, 𝐚36.5 were the ones who took up the front, and Lotto were quickly gone from the front already, and that was a bit of a tactical blunder from the Belgian outfit. With 2 kilometers to go, it is 𝐚36.5 and Tour de Pro Cycling who are mostly responsible for the front. And when we do come down to the motorbike shot again, we can see it is in fact Tour de Pro Cycling that had wrestled control of the bunch, driving this home for the man of Mozzato and really injecting some real pace into this going into the last few throws of this race. But we can see NSN Cycling are also quietly moving up with their entourage, and this is the moment right here with 1 kilometers to go. We can see Tudor have basically decimated themselves at the front. Jayco are just about a bit unorganized as well, and there we have NSN Cycling getting organized, having clear air as well to do what they want to move up, and they do a very good job to just dictate the front. And then before long, they are the team in control in the crucial part of the sprint. No one really knowing what to do about this, as they've just absolutely hijacked control of the sprint, pouncing at the right time and leaving many of these teams scrambling for positions behind. And you can see many of the riders completely out of position. No Dylan Groenewegen here on a delete, struggling a bit as well. And this was an absolute masterstroke by NSN Cycling. And here we can see Dylan Groenewegen appearing with no lead out, unfortunately, for the Dutchman. And going into this final, you could see Biniam Girmay opening up the sprint, and no one really able to be in the position to challenge the Eritrean for this sprint. Bini really opening up the throttle and having time to celebrate, with many of the teams being distraught at the loss of position and not quite being able to counter here. And you can see Bini absolutely in the perfect position there as he celebrates the victory. Fretin and Dylan Groenewegen and the likes will definitely be a bit upset about that. What could have been for them, but what an absolutely masterstroke by Biniam Girmay and his teammates. They're really showing that NSN Cycling is a really good lead out force for the Eritrean. In terms of the top 10, Bini wins, as we know, his second win with the team. Milan Fretin, the defending champion, finishing in second place. Matteo Moschetti in third place, so we saw why 𝐚36.5 was working so hard. Dylan Groenewegen in fourth. Phil Bauhaus in fifth, and on a delete in sixth place. That will probably be a bit upsetting. And the former champion Pascal Ackermann in eighth, and Fernando Gaviria, unfortunately, only 10th place for the new Caroal rider. But that was a great sprint, and for many Biniam Girmay fans, myself included, a very good race. So that's basically it for this video. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment down below what you thought of this sprint. And of course, thank you to the race organizers for allowing us to show the race. And until next time, thank you for watching, and I will see you around.